conditions and making the right choice. I think, the selection was absolutely key to this. With all those right-handers in the side, I can completely understand why they left out Cornwall and to bring back for Sami Pomal. And he has an excellent first-class record. He's taken 536 first-class wickets and an average of 20.65 with the best of 8 for 18. So he's been no slouch in that 6 years since he hasn't played for the West Indies. And what a hunch and what a pick by the selectors. We give them a lot of criticism. They get a lot of criticism across all territories, but my word, they've got it absolutely spot on here. And the key thing is what the West Indies did well, and especially Warwick and Pommel, is they backed up the faith in the selectors and gave Craig Brathwaite critically a load of control. It was a stunning day.
Tino, the batting of the Sri Lankans, are you surprised and or disappointed? Some of the shots they played against the spinners almost suggested that they were out to sea. And that's a little surprising given the fact that they're so spin friendly in Sri Lanka and especially at Galle.
Look, Johnny said from the first test, Sri Lanka have two very good openers, but he's very concerned about that middle order. They came off in the first test, and Johnny was saying, look, the middle order is very bitter, but they came off well. And you have to give the selectors credit for sure. I'm not in Galle. The surface is very dry as it looks from TV and stuff, and it looks drier than the surface before. But my thing is this: if you're gonna pick all these spinners, the spinners have to perform, and that is exactly what they have done. They have performed beautifully. My thing about Versami Permal is that young man in the 6 years that he have not played international cricket has been marvelous in first class cricket for Guyana. 500 first class wickets at an average of 20. My gosh, that is absolutely brilliant. The only person to have probably a better record is Nikita Miller, and that is funny because the surfaces in the Caribbean mimic those of the surfaces in Sri Lanka, and the spinners came to the fore. They bowled beautifully, and the catching of the West Indies was decent. They took second chances, even though you might see a drop here and there. I thought that the catching was good, and just the discipline of the spinners was really, 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 really good to watch. And what I love about Versami Permal, he used all of his experience of the last 6 years to get his maiden 5-wicket haul.
Johnny, as Tino mentioned, the catching and the fielding of the West Indies team, it's almost like a metamorphosis. What we saw on day one was not reflective of what we got on day two at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, short legs are not a particularly easy position to field, is it? Because you don't get a great deal of visibility of the ball. There's a lot going on. You can get the ball, hacked off the face of the bat as well. And I think the fielding round the bat was terrific. And actually, De Silva pulled off a couple of really tight grabs from behind the wicket, and that's it was an impressive display. And I just think the thing is, if you bowl that line and length in Test match cricket, chances are going to come, especially in Galle, and especially with the way in which this pitch has quickly deteriorated. But I think what was so impressive today from the West Indies is just that, I think a lot of the talk we had yesterday was that they really need to get to the gallop or get into this game as quick as possible after a slow start on the Thursday. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, it was the perfect day you feel for the West Indies.
If we talk a bit now, Tino, about the injury to Angelo Mathews, and one of the key batsmen, in fact, the key players in Sri Lankan cricket, it probably suggests he won't be able to bowl in the second innings if he is required. But he got injured and had to go off and then came back. Do you think that had a negative mental impact on the rest of the Sri Lankan batting?
Not really. You want your best player to go out there and bat, especially that middle order. As Johnny alluded to time and time, that is very brittle. And to lose someone like Angelo Mathews in that middle order with a tight strain, it's very difficult. And he is a class all-rounder, and to hurt your leg, obviously, is very difficult. So I think that's a big loss. And I think West Indies are really in with the opportunity to get a good first innings lead and put some pressure back on that middle order. The opening fast bowlers have to go out there and bowl hard whenever the opportunity comes again. And the spinners got to be disciplined once again. But so far, so good for the West Indies. If they're going to give them a grade out of 10, I will give them 8 so far. They've been terrific.
Johnny, Angelo Mathews, he's had an up and down history in Sri Lankan cricket. In fact, he was termed a rebel by the administration of Sri Lankan cricket over the past couple of months in terms of the issue of salaries and contracts for the players. But he is a vital cog in Sri Lankan cricket, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Angelo Mathews has been a world-class performer for Sri Lanka. Especially in the games that I've covered him, he had a critical part to play in the World Cup victory over England, which really dented their chances of getting through to that final, which they did, of course. But that was just one example of Angelo Mathews in the white ball game. But in the Test match game, he's got both skills. He's a very handy bat in that middle order. He's got tons of experience, and of course, he gives you that seam option, which is invaluable, which means you can play the amount of spin options that Sri Lanka have available. And of course, they cast out another seamer in this particular game. But no, he's a real class performer. And to have him hamstrung for the rest of the game is of huge benefit to the West Indies, no question, especially when it comes to Sri Lanka to try and put pressure in that third innings when he comes to bat again. No, it's a fillip for the West Indies, but it's a huge disappointment for him because Sri Lankan cricket is definitely stronger for the likes of somebody like Angelo Mathews being in that side.
Tino, West Indies got up to 69 for 1 in 29 overs and 4 balls. Surprisingly, I guess to all of us, Jermaine Blackwood, the vice captain, opened once again, and he got as far as 44 in his typical style. Your thoughts again on Blackwood actually opening the innings?
Yeah, look, I think that at the end of the day, putting on 60 for the first wicket is brilliant. Well done by the two openers. Blackwood is going to play shots. I think that he's a fighter. And what I love about Jermaine Blackwood, he's one of those real gritty players. And if the ball is there to hit, he's going to try to hit it. That is what I love about him. And that is the players that you want around the team. You want guys who are very positive, who are going to put their self on the line all the time and just back themselves. And I love cricketers who back themselves. And I thought the 44 was disciplined. It was decent and just what the West Indies were looking for. We would have loved to see it carry on, but nevertheless, I think that the stage that the West Indies are right now, I think they would take anything to be in this position.
Johnny, Jermaine Blackwood opening. I think we all thought that Shea Hope would have been coming out to bat with Craig Brathwaite, but it's apparent that Blackwood, as vice captain, has put his hand up and says, no, I'm going to be the one to go forward because we don't have an opening batsman, so I'll do the job. Isn't that great for West Indies cricket that we have a vice captain who is like that, who's willing to put his hand up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jermaine Blackwood, I think, has come under a little criticism in recent Test matches, but actually some of the great West Indies performances that we've seen in the last 18 months or so has had him at the fore, of course. That fantastic chase in that first Test against England at the Ageas Bowl on West Indies' last tour was terrific, and there was a number of other. There was that, of course, the big 100 in New Zealand as well. He is a good player, and I think what Jermaine Blackwood has done well here is, as you say, he's taken responsibility. He's taken on the new ball, which gives Shea Hope a little bit more protection in that sort of top or middle order. And he's done a great job. You feel this Test match is going to be a game of cat and mouse. I don't feel there'll be a vast amount in it between the two innings. I reckon Sri Lanka will get their disciplines ready tomorrow. I mean, if West Indies can get a lead, fantastic. But I think this is going to be a very, very tight match with a lot of rain about. But this, these kind of starts, 60 for the first wicket. Not easy opening it in international cricket. I think Blackwood has done a terrific job for his team as vice captain on this occasion.
Tino, only 3 sessions of play so far, and yet the Test match has progressed quite well. We have no idea how much more rain is expected in Galle, but you've been there and you suggest that we will have more rain in Galle. Trailing by 135 runs. At this stage, West Indies in front, but yet behind because we know the state of the pitch and how it can get, and the fact that West Indies will have to bat last, presuming they don't get a big 400 score or whatever.
Well, if you look at the situation of West Indies in the last 18 months, one will want to watch this game with great anticipation in terms of fingers crossed. let's not get beyond ourselves. I think that Sri Lanka is still in the driver's seat. West Indies have a very, very soft middle order, just like Sri Lanka. So West Indies could find themselves 170 all out and put Sri Lanka back in the driver's seat. So you hope that the batsmen be disciplined enough to be selective with their shots and say to themselves, look, we got a good start from our openers. Let's build on this and not get carried away, because Sri Lanka will definitely come out tomorrow spinning that ball hard, and the wicket is continuing to deteriorate very quickly in golf, because remember, the wicket is dry from the first day, Andrew and Johnny. So you know the ball is going to turn even more. So let's hope that the West Indies can get 200, match the same score of Sri Lanka, and then we can go on from there. But hopefully, and as a West Indian, we want to see them score 300, but I don't see West Indies scoring 300 on that surface with this batting lineup.
Johnny, how do we approach the start of day 3? Craig Brathwaite is there, the ever dependable, we have to say, and Kuma Bonner has joined him. If Bonner were to bat 200-plus balls again, as he did in the second innings of the first test, it would put West Indies in an extremely strong position. But how do you see West Indies approaching the start of day 3 tomorrow?
Well, the start is critical. If they can have a similar start to the day tomorrow as they did today, that would be terrific, really, because the longer they can bat, the more this is the opportunity to bat. The history suggests that scores slide very, very quickly here in Galle, and of course batting sides predominantly do win. So regardless of the fact that Sri Lanka are slightly behind the 8 ball, or appear to be behind the 8 ball, I still fancy them in this game. West Indies are going to have to play exceptional cricket to get a lead tomorrow, and the first thing is just to keep those spinners at bay from the off and have as tight a start as possible. What they don't want is a dramatic first session. If they can get up and beyond the Sri Lankan side, they'll have a terrific chance in this match. But history tells you that 19 test matches out of the 35 played here at Galle are won by the side batting first, and just 10 are won by the side batting second. So the odds and the history is still very much in Sri Lanka's favour. But, Nakuma Bonner has proved brilliantly in subcontinental conditions. Of course, the innings that he played in Bangladesh, and again in that first test here, he has got a game to suit this environment. And if he can bat long, then the West Indies have got a great chance of trying to get a lead tomorrow.
Tino, skipper Craig Brathwaite, in his typical debonair style, 22 not out off a number of balls. Isn't it time that Craig Brathwaite comes off big in an international test match?
Craig, you mean play more shots? You're never going to see that from Craig Brathwaite. Craig Brathwaite is the West Indies Alistair Cook, and he's going to hang in there, and that is his style. You can't cramp people's style, Andrew. I think you got to support them. If that's Craig's style of batting, let him bat that way. He is the captain. He wants to bat the whole of the third day, and obviously put his team in a very, very strong position. And you're not going to see the flamboyancy of a Shea Hope in a Craig Brathwaite. So please don't look for that. Craig has his own style. That's what has worked for him. That's why he is being one of the more obvious choices when it comes to opening West Indies batting and stuff. And he has the best average, as they can say, nothing to write home about. But I think he's one of the better openers and more stubborn openers that we've had in recent times, and that's his style. So I hope that he can go on to score 100 from maybe 275 balls, 300 balls, and put the team in a good position. I think that will be his way of going forward come tomorrow morning.
Johnny, international test cricket, there's been so much discussion back and forth. We just had the T20 World Cup. Now we're having the qualifiers for the next World Cup. The schedule from the ICC with all the one-days and one-day internationals, the championship. But test cricket still remains the premier choice for those who really love the game. And when we have a game like this, after 2 days, poised the way it is, it tells you the reason why people still want more test cricket. But we seem to be having less of it.
Well, look, it is the primary form of the game. I mean, nobody really remembers a 2020 game, do they? I mean, even a 50 over World Cup. And when I was commentating on the World Cup final in 2019, and to be honest, I've pretty much forgotten what happened the day after, compared to the amazing scenes that we saw later in that summer in the Ashes when Ben Stokes got England home in that extraordinary match at Headingley. People remember Test matches. New Zealand have just fought off an extraordinary draw against India. And you see these games. These are games that are masterful. 5 days of cricket, if you like. It's a great body of work. You can get into it. You can see that things develop, and yet things can happen very quickly, or things can be very nuanced. Test cricket is the primacy for me. I mean, the problem you've got really with Test cricket is that in a country like England, to give you an idea, each Test match is worth £45 million to the UK, to the ECB, to the economy of the game, if you like. Now, that's not reflected across the globe, and that's one of its big problems. It's just the income that boards get to generate from the game is the problem. It's easier to stage in a way, T10, T20 series or ODI series. But you may find actually one of the things over COVID, actually in a way, actually when you've got Test matches, because you've got people in a fixed position rather than trying to fly them around the country, Test matches do make a lot of economic sense for certain countries. The problem is spreading that wealth. And I think we've talked about it, and Jason Holder talks about it a lot, in that one of the problems is that there needs to be more of a trickle down to other boards to make sure that we can maintain the primacy of Test cricket. Because one of the problems, it's all very well, but it's all very well the game being the primary game. But the problem is, if you haven't got other boards being able to put out strong sides like the West Indies and like those in not the second tier nations, but those below the likes of India, Australia, and England, the game is going to wither and die. And there's a responsibility for the ICC and also the big three to make sure that those resources, if you like, are spread evenly across the game.
Tino, as Johnny makes that point, because I want to say that a 2-test series, West Indies, Sri Lanka, seems a little short, because it means that if we do well in this test match, but don't win it, and Sri Lanka won the series 1-0, but it's not really reflective of what has actually happened on the field of play. If we had played 3 test matches, we might have really got the real story of the series.
Yeah, Johnny said everything there right away. I mean, well said, Johnny. Look, at the end of the day, 3 test series is the minimum that nations should play against each other. I do not like 2 test series because it doesn't make any sense. But at the end of the day, as Johnny said, the big three will never play 2 test series. It's only the small teams that get to play 2 test series. And that's from an economic standpoint. Obviously, the boards cannot facilitate a 3 or 4 or 5 match series because they don't have the money to support it, and they don't have that sponsorship. So at the end of the day, Johnny said the big three got to make sure that the game continues to evolve and that wealth trickles down, because it doesn't make any sense all the big teams eating all the big food, as we say in Barbados, and the poor fella not getting a crumb. All he getting is bits and crumbs. He want to eat a big steak as well. So I think that you got to be fair when it comes to international cricket, and that is something that the ICC have to take very seriously.
Yes, and I certainly think so, Johnny. And you've made the point that the big three playing each other is fine, but for the world game, it can't just be 3 or 4 nations. The world game, as in all sports, requires there to be many more nations, many more countries reaching a higher level. We are seeing high-level cricket in this test match, Sri Lanka against West Indies, and surprising to some, I would say, some may say, but we are seeing high-level cricket here, which suggests there is the possibility of other teams rising to be part of the top 3 to make it a top 5 or 6.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what you want, ideally, is a really strong competition. And the fact is, you have that at the moment. You've got New Zealand, who are very much an underdog in the world game, and they're top of the rankings. They're giving India a good run for their money. They won the World Test Championship, so it tells you what you can do with a slightly more limited budget than the top 3 have. I mean, to be fair, there have been recent moves. I think England's response to West Indies coming to the UK in the middle of a pandemic, pre-vaccine, was that we have got a lengthy and really exciting 3 Test match tour coming up in March in the Caribbean. And it's those kind of gestures that we need to see from across the board. We need to see Australia doing those kind of gestures. We need, India actually, have been pretty good at actually spreading the game over time, but we need a little bit more than that, because you want, the primacy of Test cricket is so important. And the only way you're going to maintain that is if people are engaged to play it and play it consistently alongside all the other things that actually may make them some more money. But without sides like the West Indies competing left, right and centre in cricket across the board, you are going to get, the game is going to be in trouble. I mean, one of the beautiful things about that 2-1 series win over England when England last travelled to the Caribbean, and of course England have only won once in the Caribbean since 1969, just to give you an idea of how unsuccessful England are in the Caribbean, is that actually nobody begrudged, any of the England supporters, nobody begrudged the West Indies playing well and winning. They were just delighted because it showed the game off in rude health at the time. And you just want those kind of scenarios. You want every Test match to have that kind of frizz-on and expectation, and ultimately with 2 well-matched sides playing against each other.
That's Johnny Barron and Tino Best also on tour. West Indies versus Sri Lanka. It's been a great day 2 for the West Indies, and they resume at 69 for 1. Sri Lanka having been bowled out for 204. And you can join us tomorrow morning for more on tour. West Indies versus Sri Lanka, day 3 from Gaul.
Time to jump up, people, are you ready?
The 3-match netball series between Jamaica and England moves to Nottingham for the last 2 games. The Motorpoint Arena will be the focus of attention as the world number 4 ranked Sunshine Girls of Jamaica square off against the Roses in back-to-back games December 4th and 5th. Both games can be seen live and exclusive starting at 12 p.m. ECT, 11 a.m. in Jamaica on Extra 7. Also available on the FlowSports app.
Newcastle United and Norwich are 2 of the favourites to go down to the end of the season, and they meet in a bottom-of-the-table clash in the Premier League at the end of November. St James's Park will host this showdown on November 30, where the outcome will have serious implications. Kickoff is 3:30 p.m. ECT, 2:30 in Jamaica, exclusively on Rush.
Also available on the FlowSports app.
The art of seeing is such an extraordinary sense. As photographers, the pictures we take are expressions of reality. Painting with the light and the shadows. We have come to re-envision the Caribbean islands.
The West Indies cricketers will be out to avenge the first test when they face Sri Lanka in the final game of their 2-test series. The teams will square off at the Gal International Stadium starting on Monday, November 29th through to December 3rd. FlowSports will again have live and exclusive coverage starting at 12:30 a.m. ECT, 11:30 p.m. in Jamaica. Don't miss it. Also available on the FlowSports app. Also available on the FlowSports app.